Good morning and welcome to All for One. My name is Gail Olansky and I'm joined this morning with Cheryl Guess, Gail Morton, and William Conway. And we have a great talk for you today, not just a talk, a discussion that we would welcome you to join in on, because we're going to be going outside the box that of reality. I'll just put it that way, of reality. So I invite you just to close your eyes and join me as we open up this space together in oneness, in wholeness, in the energy of light and love that is everywhere present, that some call God, some call infinite intelligence, some call Buddha, some call Allah. But it is one source of life that all beings have their life in and all are. And so I welcome everybody who is joining us today, whether you are here live or coming through the recording. It is all time and space collapsed into this one beautiful moment that we share together. And so I'm grateful just to open up this space for us to open up our minds to new ideas, to contemplate that which is being discussed, and to know it is an expansion of consciousness to see beyond the world of appearances, of materialism, and to see the spirit, the unformed substance, the energy that is boundless, that is ours to use to bring forth into form by means of our consciousness. And so I'm grateful to know that all are welcome here today, that it is all about love. It is all about remembering who we are and just allowing ourselves to grow and remember that all is expanding together as one. And so knowing that everything is ready to unfold with grace and ease, I'm just very grateful to be in this wonderful virtual discussion with my beloved friends and with all of you. And so knowing that we are now ready to begin, I let go, I let it be, as we say together, and so it is. Here we are on the other side of prayer and on the side of a rich discussion. Our beloved Cheryl has given us the topic for today, which is all about quantum and looking at life through a different lens. And rather than give any more away than that, I'm going to talk about our question for the day, which is really fun. The question is, what belief have you had in the past that later you found to be untrue when observed from a different perspective? And this is a great question. And what I came to at first, I couldn't grab anything. And then it was like this huge light revealed itself to me. And one of the biggest beliefs that I changed in my heart was my belief in God, because when I grew up, I was taught to believe that God was a person, just a divine person, but an angry, vengeful God, also a loving God, but there were two sides to God. And when I came into Science of Mind, I learned a new way to see God, and it changed my belief. And that way is that God is just love, and God is not a person, God is energy. And so that was a game changer for me. It changed my belief, and it changed my life as a result. So I'm going to turn it over to Gail. Gail, what's your answer to our question?
Well, thank you, Dale. So interestingly enough, my initial answer was the same as Dale's, my perception of God. Because when I was growing up, the same thing. I was taught a very, what I would call, dualistic God. And then I realized that when I really looked at Cheryl's question, I never believed that. So I had to think about it more carefully, because I never bought into that and I never believed it. But then when I was thinking about it more deeply, when I was a young girl, very young girl, I thought both of my parents were perfect. And I'm talking absolutely perfect, perfect in every way. I thought the sun both rose and set on my parents. And so I looked at them both through those eyes, through eyes that had stars in them. And then one day it started to dawn on me that they weren't perfect. As my experience of life expanded and it grew, my perception began to change. And honestly, this was really difficult for me. As believing as I did that my parents were perfect, that carried many implications as to how I viewed the world, particularly from a safety standpoint, safety and trust. So when I finally accepted that my parents were not perfect in every way and had their own strengths and challenges just like everybody else, that was, quite frankly, a bit of a blow. Because as I said earlier, I really didn't buy into that dualistic God, and I think I probably put my parents on that pedestal. So it was really a blow for me, because it opened up for me a new perspective on the world that at that time I really didn't want to see. So that's my answer today. William, how about you?
Wow, all these are going to be so in a line. I had an answer, but as soon as I heard Dale say hers, I quickly changed it to something else. But originally I was going to say that schoolwork or learning out of a book is not my forte. I love to learn, but out of a book and that sort of stuff, I never felt I was very good at. Until we went through graduation, we had to write that thesis, and I was very surprised at I just thought, okay, I just squeaked by, but it actually was pretty decent. But after hearing the question and what Dale said, I'm going to change it to spirituality. I grew up not believing in the church and believing in myself. So there wasn't a belief about myself, like I couldn't do anything, because I remember, people saying, oh, you can't do this or you can't do that, you're not smart enough. And I always remember in my head going, no, that's not my truth. I am smart. And so I never had that problem. However, when it came to spirituality, that is another tune. And up until I found this center and started learning the teachings and getting in and realizing that spirituality or faith isn't something outside of order. I'm very mathematical. I like order. There's structure. And in this philosophy, in this teaching, spirituality, quantum physics, spirituality and mechanics and real life are hand in hand. And so as I came into this and started learning, I consider myself to be extremely spiritual. Now, I have my own ways of expressing that spirituality, and it may be a little bit different than your traditional, as you close your eyes and picture someone being spiritual, you're not going to see my picture there. But nonetheless, spirituality and seeing my connection with all life has definitely changed. It's opened me up. It's made me see things and interact in different ways. It's opened my eyes. It's opened my heart. It has definitely changed my life. So spirituality is my answer. Now I'd love to hear what Cheryl has to say.
Wow. Y'all, every one of you, I go, okay, I can't do that when Dale did that. Okay, I can't do Gail's because Gail did that. I can't do William's, he did that. But it all came back to, I realized that it's kind of a conglomerate of what everyone has said. And what was the most life-changing for me was to realize that there is no such thing as evil. Now, we call evil when people use the power that we have, this free will that we have, the choice that we have, we use it in a way that is not a very nice way to do things, right? Exactly. That's kind of making it sugar-coated. But the fact that there was no evil, that there was no separation, there was no division, God and then evil, that there were two separate entities. And it just never made sense. It's like Dale said, God is a vengeful God. Well, evil gave us a way of saying, oh, it's not really God doing this, it's evil doing this. And I still, and if I've said this before, it still cracks me up. I had a friend that one day she called me, and she was a fundamental Christian person. And she said, oh, I had the worst day. The devil's just been chasing me all day long. Everything I've done, the devil's been after me. And for some reason in my head, I had this little guy with a pitchfork and the tail and red chasing her around, stabbing her with a pitch. I couldn't help myself. I just died laughing because this was before I was in the teaching. But then I started thinking about, that's how we have perceived evil for so long, that it's something totally separate from us, where the reality is it's not. We create evil, if you want to call it that, or what we define as evil. We create, by our actions, that's the consequence at times of our actions. So for me to find out that there was no evil was just like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. But the reason it made so much sense to me was because for something to be infinite, there's no beginning and no end. So if you have a split in it and there's two separate things, then it can't be infinite. Does that make, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but to me, it was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much more sense. It was just like a total eye opener. And I think that was one of the most profound truths that I learned when I started going to the center. And so it was, it made it impossible for me to be a victim anymore because the devil wasn't chasing me. I was creating what was showing up in my life. I was manifesting it. And so with that said, I'd like to tell you, so my title was The Materialistic Worldview. Is it scientific revolution or was it madness? Okay, so all right, we all know this. Old beliefs are very difficult to change because that's how we've defined our world, how we've defined our interactions with people. All those beliefs are our perception in there. All of those beliefs are, we just grab hold and we just hold on because this must be the truth because that's what we believe. But think about this. Back over, good Lord, 500 years ago, people thought the earth was flat and it wasn't round. And this was promoted by religion. It was enforced by, if you didn't believe that was heresy in the church. And so you could be tortured or even killed if you went against this belief that we were the center of the universe and the world was flat. And so there was all kinds of evidence dating back from the ancient philosophers from seeing the way that the world was revolving. And so one of the things that was really interesting was about the sun revolving around this earth. It didn't. They thought the sun revolved around the earth. I'm sorry, I said it backwards. But the truth of it was that, Copernicus, he was the one that coined the phrase retrograde. Because when he was looking at the sky at night, Mercury would be just tooling along. And all of a sudden, it was like it went backwards overnight. And he was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And so when he started looking at it from the point of view that maybe we weren't the center of the universe and maybe actually the sun was the center of the universe, then all of these little issues that kept popping up about, Mercury moving backwards. And so for a long time, people thought Mercury suddenly went in reverse, and we know now that, when you look at physics and stuff, that's impossible. So anyway, so Copernicus, he was actually charged with heresy as well for saying that. So for 359 years, the Catholic Church held on to the view that the sun revolved around the earth. It wasn't, now this was, even though it hadn't been proven and even though science knew this, it wasn't until 1992 that the church said, okay, Galileo was right. And you think about that, that was 1992, we already knew better than that. But so if you've got these entrenched ideas, how do you get, so think about it. The whole population of the world at that time had to convert their thinking to the earth is round. And we revolve around the sun. It doesn't revolve around us. And so if you think about your own life, how often have you just bought into something and you're absolutely certain that that is true? And then you find out later that it's not. And so that was why the question, what have you bought into? What do you believe? That if you look at it from a different point of view, do you see that it's not true? And that was a really tough thing to do. So also, Newton then came along and he formed physics, which it's a way of dealing with the materialistic world. But then everybody started thinking that the world, to exist, you had to be in form, that was material. You had to be a form in order to exist. But now we know that's not true. There are so many, the universe is just made up of quantum particles, and some of them are in form and some are not in form, and then some go back to not being in form. They're still in form in the sense, but they haven't formed like a human being. So the other thing to think about is that we are manifestations. We are in form only through the spiritual nature of the universe, through the quantum nature of the universe. And so it's, you have to kind of sever that feeling of separation from what we've been taught for thousands of years. For thousands of years, we are only material. And, and what was good about Newton's philosophy, even though it was totally flawed, sorry to say, because it only looked at one aspect of what we are. We're spiritual beings in form. But that doesn't change that we're still spiritual beings. And so, you look at it. So when did the heliocentric idea that the planets revolved around the sun? I mean, Galileo was the first that said that. And in 1616, he was charged with heresy, and he was threatened with torture if he didn't recant that. If he didn't come back and say, oh, I was wrong. But it was said that when he left the courtroom, even though he recanted, when he left the courtroom, he said, it's still the same. It doesn't matter what you do, So it's just, so when do you stop thinking that everything that occurred in your past or everything that you are is only because a materialistic kind of thing? How do we ever, with the mindset that we have at this time, go into the quantum thinking realm where we realize that reality, according to Einstein, reality is merely an illusion, albeit a persistent one. So we say it's an illusion, but we are real. This is real, but it's not real in the sense of being just materialistic. It's so much more than that, so much bigger than that. There was a guy, his name is Hans Peter Durer, and he said, reality reveals itself as nothing but potentiality. That's all this is that we are in a world that is nothing but potential. We are potential. Everything is potential. And, sometimes we get locked in this thing that, oh, I've reached my potential. I've done my best. This is the best I can do. And this is my, there's nothing else for me to, strive for. There's nothing else for me to do. I know people that are like that. This is my world. This is what I do. This is my job. And this is good enough for me. I don't want to change the way I think. I don't want to change the way I feel. And if they're comfortable with that, it's not my place to say, okay, you're totally wrong. but they're not. They're living their world according to their reality. And that's the whole point, is it all is a concept of our reality and realizing that we are the ones that are creating it. We're creating this reality every moment of every day, with every thought, with every action, because it is a quantum universe. We can't deny it any longer. But how do we get from that old mindset to the new? And that's what this is all about. What we have to realize is that it's all consciousness. It is just all consciousness. They've proven even the smallest electron has consciousness. And, everything in the world is consciousness. And by not fully embracing that potential, we really, really limit ourselves. So we have to start thinking in a different way and feeling in a different way and seeing everything as God or quantum. Everything is quantum physics. Everything is this quantum, this little tiny microcosm universe reflects the whole big universe that we have. The macro comes from the micro. And so remember this, reality is each one of us have our own reality. And our reality is constructed from our imaginations. So whatever you're imagining, whatever you see, whatever you're feeling, whatever's going on in your life, it all comes from what you imagine the world to be. And you're creating it constantly. So I want to just turn this over to my colleagues and see if anything in here just tweaks something within them. Dale's going to go next.
I just follow that amazingness that you just presented, and I love what you said, Cheryl. And quantum physics is really hot right now, especially with spiritual centers and the new thought revolution that is continuing to evolve and expand. And I think just to kind of boil it down to why is this important to us, which Cheryl, you nailed it. It's about changing our lives no matter what's happened. And we've got a wonderful spiritual truth called principle is unbound by precedent. So for me, coming into how I came into this center, and my beloveds here as well, I can't speak for all of you guys, but I know for me, I wanted to change my life. And this whole teaching of what we teach, and now quantum physics supporting through scientific experiment what we know and what we teach, that you can change anything because the source of life is invisible energy. It's not in the physical world. You don't have to look to the physical world to change your life. All you need to do is know that there are infinite possibilities, and just because all this stuff happened before, if you move into a state of knowing that anything new can be born by means of your consciousness, you can do it. You can change your life, change your beliefs, and change everything if you believe and trust in what we're teaching through quantum physics and through science of mind. So for me, really the big gem in all of this is that science is now proving that you can change, and you can do it by tuning into that infinite energy in the invisible quantum field, and just draw in whatever you want that possibility to be. And the universe will definitely support you in that. And, we use prayer. Prayer is one of our biggest, that we should probably call prayer quantum prayer or something like that. Start to tweak the name of it. Quantum, whatever, declaration of quantum, whatever. We'll have to work on that. But I mean, we teach that. We teach prayer is all about using that quantum field to bring forth the life that you want to live. So I'm going to start with that. And Gail, it's up to you now. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Dale. So, I love the way that Cheryl, in coming up with the topic today, the materialist worldview. And then she kind of compared and contrasted and brought spirituality into that topic. So in thinking about this topic today, for me, one of the defining qualities of a worldview, a modern worldview, materialism, is duality. And duality, for the sake of our topic today, meaning the separation of one reality into two: materialism and spiritualism. And that's how I think about the term materialist or materialism as a worldview. So as I thought about this, from this, I was interested in understanding this topic, materialist worldview, that Cheryl's brought us today from the perspective of two worldviews: materialism and spiritualism. So in thinking about this, I had to first understand how the worldview of materialism came about. And I'm going to share some additional history to augment what Cheryl has shared with us. So when I was doing a lot of my comparative religion courses, when I was doing my spiritual direction course for interfaith, what I was taught and what I discovered is that one way that this materialist worldview came about was way back in the 17th century. There was a philosopher and a mathematician, and his name was René Descartes. And you might have heard about something called the Cartesian split, and that was Descartes. He essentially established a division between the mind and body, as we would call capital M mind, matter and spirit, whichever we want to call it. And interestingly enough, this philosopher and mathematician Descartes viewed both as divine, yet both completely separate and different. He believed that one domain, body or matter, could be studied by science, and the other realm, mind or spirit, both with capital M, capital S, was only to be known through religion. So in many ways, that began the split between a materialistic worldview and a spiritualistic worldview. So what we know today is that what he created in his theory, which is what it was really nothing more than an uneasy truth between matter and spirit that exists for most of us to this day. And the irony is, however, that once you look closer, you see the boundary between mind and body, matter and spirit dissolve into unity, revealing the truth that the division between the two is completely artificial and has only ever existed in one place. And that's inside our mind with a small m. So I'll expand a little bit more later. I'm sure we all will on how these two levels of reality reunite or come together, because that's really where they are. But for now, let's make sure we're all on the same page with the unique attributes of, well, and the perceived differences between matter and spirit. So this is how I think of materialism. My simple answer is the stuff of the world. That's what I think of. And more specifically, materialism is that realm of everything you can perceive through your senses. So we're back to the five senses: what you see, hear, smell, touch, and taste. And at this material level, all events are directed by a set of fixed scientific laws. We know what they are: the law of motion, the law of gravity, thermodynamics. There's so many different scientific laws. And all these laws precisely predict the behavior of nature. So we have these scientific laws, and materialism is also inherently impermanent. It'll exist for a time and it'll eventually come to an end. So that's another unique characteristic. And therefore, the materialistic world is what our minds have come to interpret as the normal way the world works. And it feels solid, it feels permanent to us. But we also know that appearances can be deceiving. So I tend to think about our material world a lot like building an elaborate sandcastle that's ultimately destined to wash away in the ocean. So you can see how easy it is for materialism to be the dominant way each of us might view the world. Our senses can be really convincing, right? And when we've been culturally and socially indoctrinated into the belief that the world works in a very reasonable, kind of nuts and bolts way, it's difficult to believe that there might be another option. But I think on the other end of the spectrum, we have spiritual reality, or the underlying consciousness of the universe. And again, that spectrum, as Cheryl said in her introduction question, it's continuous, right? It's a spectrum, it's continuous, there's no separation. So if the material reality is the stuff of the world, I think of spirituality as the non-stuff of the world. And while spiritual reality doesn't have solid, tangible properties that register with your five senses, it is the source that gives rise to all the things you can perceive at the material level. So as Dale said, it's the pure potential of all that was, all that is, all that will be. So it's the void in some ways, kind of simultaneously empty and at the same time pregnant with possibilities. And it has no physical properties, and it's not governed by any scientific laws. Yet it gives rise to all those things and infinitely more. So unlike the impermanence of the materialistic worldview, the material level, the spiritual domain is infinite. It's eternal. It has always been this way, and it always will be this way. So when you identify with spiritual reality, you're knowing yourself through the total inclusivity of universal awareness. And in this very expansive state, all divisions, all limitations dissolve into the love of pure awareness. I think we're able to live in a more sacred manner and feel a deeper connection with life and all things life. And this doesn't mean that the material world doesn't exist. It absolutely does. It simply means for me that it isn't my true home. So I'm going to kind of stop there and move to William to get his thoughts.
Ooh, that's going to be a hard act to follow. Gail, thank you so very much. That was very deep and insightful. Wow. Okay. I like the idea of materialism, and I'm going to stay on that course. It's funny that Cheryl brought up Earth being in the center of the universe, or our solar system, flat Earth. It's funny, but there are people or a movement now that are bringing back flat Earth into awareness. It's kind of entertaining to see how people think. I'm not going to tell them how to think or what to think, but it's interesting to watch the thought process of others and compare it to my own thought process. And so that's the segue that I'm going to go into now about materialism and Gail's insights about material, how thin it is. I mean, it's like Kansas saying, dust in the wind. You know, all we are is dust and wind. We feel or we think that the stuff around us, the material knickknacks, are permanent. But on a cosmic scale, it's seriously even smaller than dust. And so from this time, in this beautiful period of reflection, this time where we're all separate, we're supposed to stay in our house and be separate, I see it as a beautiful time to really contemplate yourself and who and what you are, your relationship to others, your relationship to what you thought was important. And a few weeks ago, I went to Los Angeles and I noticed that almost every single overpass that you go over, that you drive under, there are now encampments of huts and tents and stuff of that nature. And I used to look at that and go, wow, there's a lot of homeless, and how difficult or how sad that is to be there. But then I realized, who am I to say that they may be even happier than I could ever possibly imagine? So I'm basing my thoughts about someone else's life upon the stuff around me, what I have, what I think I have, the roof over my head, the zip code that I'm from, the new iPhone that I'm able to purchase this year because they seem to break every 2 years. But realistically, is that important? Like Gail was mentioning. And it brings me to think about my own self and my own thought process, because I can imagine someone who is God, who is spirit, just like I am, just like you are, but yet they don't have to worry about that $3,000 mortgage or $5,000, $6,000 mortgage. They don't have to worry, or I shouldn't say they may, but I would think that they don't have the same worries about money that I do, that rat race in my head to make sure that I'm able to keep my stuff. Like George Carlin, is it that comedian? Stuff, I gotta get my stuff, and we go on vacation, we get our stuff and we put it in small bags, and we have more stuff, a smaller version of our stuff, so that we can put it out in our rooms. And then we're going to go to the beach and we take that little stuff and we put it in even smaller bags, and we take more stuff to the beach, and we have our stuff. Everything's stuff. But what about the connection of spirit and the connection of brotherhood and sisterhood and the camaraderie and seeing all life, not just humans, but all life, plants, everything. So seeing those people or those encampments up there, it made me think more of my spirituality, made me think of what am I doing? So who am I? What arrogance do I have to look at somebody who's on the side of the road, who's not dressed the way that I would be dressed? Who's to say who's happier, who's more content, who's more in touch with themselves? I mean, wouldn't it be nice that you could spend, I mean, when we go on vacation, we spend that time to just think about ourselves and just to do what we want, when we want, how we want, and stuff like that. But we've got to save up a whole year's worth of my stuff to be able to afford that 2 weeks or that 1 week, or sometimes even just that weekend. While these people, I can imagine every single day of their life, they are there. They're connected with the person next to them. I can imagine seeing their open hearts to where they're helping one another with whatever situation that they're having. So who's more spiritual? Who's more enlightened? The person that's driving the Ford F-150 or this year's model of Ferrari? Or is it that person who's living in a tent on the side of the road, but sees everyone and everything around them with eyes and with compassion? Something to think about. So in this time of where we think we're missing out because of COVID, just think of it as a time that we hit the reset button, a reset of our consciousness, of our hearts, and reset it to be open and compassionate with others. This is a great topic, Cheryl and Gail. That was a great monologue that you put out there. And so I think I'm done for right now. But just open your eyes and don't assume that whether others have or don't have, they are in a worse place than you. Because it's all about here. It's all about what's inside. It's not the material stuff, that dust in the wind. So I think that Dale is going to, or Cheryl's going to call me. Okay, Cheryl.
Thank you. And Gail, that was fabulous. I had a little note about Descartes there, but thank you for taking it way beyond what I was going to do. But the looking at the world, this is what the materialistic worldview, I said this at the beginning, but remember, this is how it's defined. Materialism is not about just the stuff. It's the doctrine that to be, in other words, to exist is to be in form or to be material. And so we have all this other stuff around us that, you know, this is coming from our, as what is it, call it, we're co-dreamers with the universe. We're creating this is our dream. This is how it's unfolding for us. This is our reality. But, you know, sometimes if you think about it, when you start seeing the world, materialism, or the material part of the world as separate from the spiritual part, it really does, according to Paul Levy, and I love this phrase, it says, it takes the heart and the soul and the magic out of the world. In other words, it takes away that part of us, or it takes away from our reality, the knowledge that we are creating our world. We, instead of the world coming at us, we're coming at what's coming out of us is what's creating all this. And so I just love that idea of this is a participatory universe. We are always involved with the spiritual aspect. There's no separation from it. So there is no way that we should ever come from that point of view as being separate or alone or totally, totally, as I used to, the individual, a total individual. Yes, we are individual manifestations, but we're still part of this beautiful fabric that is the universe, where it's all intertwined. It's all creating this beautiful picture, outpicturing of what our world is. But we have really we've really damped it down a lot by not looking at it from the perspective that it's all just one thing. We've made it into something a lot less than what it is. And so after that, I'm just going to turn this over to Dale. Yes, I think it's Dale. Yes.
Yeah. I love this. Thank you. So I'm gonna pull in the threads of oneness and this idea that Paul Levy, because I'm reading the book that Cheryl based her talk on today, and he talks about that there is no objective world at all. None of this is objective. This is all part of our creation. As Cheryl said, we're all weaving in from, the spiritual energies just moves into form. We teach that in Science of Mind. And I love, Gail, what you talked about. It is all one thing. And Cheryl, you emphasize that as well. And, for me, this really pulls into what we're seeing in our world right now, because there's so much duality and divisiveness, and you're right, I'm wrong, just all this stuff. And it's all just a projection of our consciousness. And we talk a lot about how can I be part of the solution of the world, of the healing of the world. And, there's people that say, well, you need to go get active in what's going on. And that's fine. Everybody's drawn to do what they want to do. But I believe, first and foremost, for me, at least, being a teacher of Science of Mind, is it starts with our consciousness. At least for me, my belief is it starts with my consciousness. You can think what you like. But for me, it's to dissolve and look within my mind and see where am I looking at us, them, or duality, and coming into a place of really seeing everything that I'm seeing in the world is inside of me. And that's where my healing is. If I've got issues with it, or I'm getting, if my blood is starting to boil around something, I've got to look within me because it's in me. And that's big work to do. And I know many of you out there might be saying, wow, how do you even do that? And I just say, don't take it all on as this one thing you need to solve and do right now. It's just start to look at your world a little differently. Like we're teaching you here, it's all one thing. It's all a reflection of your consciousness. And I know Cheryl's talked, she had a talk a couple weeks ago with Lori about perception and what was it? Perception and perceiving. Yeah.
And perception and perspective.
Perspective. Yeah. And it's all within ourselves. It's all what we've learned. It's all what we've come to believe. So for me, my work that I do for myself is to dissolve all of that duality. And, and I'm going to be really transparent right now. Watching what we watched yesterday on the news, and I have no opinion. I'm not even putting an opinion out there, but and something that I teach with forgiveness is there's victims on both ends of any kind of incident where someone's harmed. And for me yesterday to go to a really big oneness place, I had to see love for every single person in what happened yesterday. I couldn't stand in one place or another. I had to see love only in the whole thing. And that takes a lot to be able to drop into that space. But for me, my work to do is to come into a state of seeing, just everything as that spiritual, the unformed substance, the invisible quantum field of energy coming forth into its cycle of form based on the consciousness. And it's just not my consciousness, it's the collective consciousness. And Paul Levy talks about this too. And he says that this reality that we live in right now is because we all agree to it. We all agree it exists, and this is what it looks like. And for me, this carries, I'm starting to segue into something else, but I'll finish this and then go on. To me, positive transformation in our world can definitely come if the more of us, and I think as teachers of New Thought, the more of us that start entertaining a different possibility for our world, let's say the solution to global warming, the more of us that see, yeah, there is a possibility, even though there's a lot of gloom and doom that comes in, how about opening the field to a possibility that hasn't come into our knowledge base yet? And to me, that collective knowing and faith is energy that's magnetic, and I know it will bring form too. So that's just my way of saying we all work together in this collective reality that we're in. And so for us to bring a greater reality in, it begins with us. Gail, you're up.
Thank you, Dale. So I just have a couple of short closing thoughts. Today it may feel to some of you like we've talked about two different things: materialist worldview, materialism, or maybe even it feels like versus spiritualist or spiritualism. And I would share that the transition zone between mind and body, mind with a capital M, and matter and spirit, spirit with a capital S, only lies within your own awareness. To see these as two different worldviews is merely the mistake of the intellect, our intellect that has split matter and spirit into two. And peeling back the layers of this artificial division is really at the heart of prayer, of meditation, of yoga, and other forms of spiritual practice. I know we haven't really talked a lot about spiritual practice today, but these tools exist as bridges back to the unity that in some cases we might have forgotten. So through their practice, you don't gain an intellectual understanding of the underlying unity at the heart of all reality. Instead, you experience it directly. And having had the experience, the illusion of duality falls away, and you can see matter and spirit with a capital S as they've always been, which is simply one and the same. So, William, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, not at all, other than start closing it down. Yes. Oh, I love what squirrel.
Everybody's pointing down, and I don't know if I'm up or down, but in the picture. But okay, that works.
Yeah, it's the Brady Bunch over here.
Exactly. The only thing I have as a closing thought was, how do you think our world would be right now if all of these misconceptions about materialism had not taken the dominant portion of thought in our world? I mean, believe it or not, even back to Ptolemy, he said back in the 3rd century, that it was the earth was not the center of the universe. So, and maybe that's something about our worldview too, is that we are the center of the universe. We are in our own selves. We're our own little planets, and we have our sun revolving around us. And so that's something that, what if though, I'm just saying, what if we had not bought into that a long time ago? What would our world be? What would our perception of the world be right now if we had actually gone with what reality was being taught even that long ago? So that's what gives me hope. That's what gives me this joyful feeling of knowing that as the more of this unfolds and the truth is revealed, that we will come together more as a world. We will start recognizing the fact that whatever happens to you happens to me. Whatever is going on in the world, it always is happening to me as well, because there's no way to be separate from it. So thank you for letting me share my thoughts on this, but y'all were fabulous today, by the way. Will you want to close this out?
Sure. It was definitely a great topic. So thank you very much, Cheryl. So anyway, so as we close down, this is our time where we would like for you to consider, as you can see down to the screen below, that we have our website email, our website address, as well as you can donate. You can donate to 760-346-4649, and you can call in your contributions, or you can actually donate via our website, your donations. Anything and everything is greatly appreciated. It allows us to put programs and content such as this out into the universe, allowing us to show and prove that we are all one. The only thing that separates us is a geographical location, but spiritually, we are all connected. With that, I'd like to invite you that every single day we have content that we're putting out there. So what's the highlights of what's coming up are, well, I'm going to start on Monday. Monday, we have Dr. James Mellon with his program, and it's called Spiritual Workout, or Workout, I believe. Oh, go ahead.
I think he finished last Monday. I don't know if he's going to be back on Monday, because we're having some programming redos. So
Thank you very much. You know what? That's what I'm talking about. I tell you what, everything is just happening. That's what we're here about. That's what I love about life. You never know what's going to happen, but you get supported in every way, sometimes in unexpected places. But regardless, every single day we have the opportunity to come and join us at 10 o'clock. Next Tuesday, I actually am doing a show at 10 o'clock. It's each one of us get an opportunity to spotlight ourselves in whichever way that we deem that we want to. And so I'm going to be doing a talk about, yay, we're opening. Not only the physical practicality about that, but the spiritual aspects of that. Very similar to what we're talking about today. Again, it blows my mind at where everything, you can see the dots or the thumbtacks with the string around them connecting everything. Let's see here. On Wednesdays morning, Gail, does her Power 8, and that's along with Dale, I do believe. On Thursday, oh, Cheryl, I'm so sorry. But then again, on Cheryl and I, on Thursdays, we have our social 8, which is basically getting together and just shits and giggles and having fun and just talking about the day and what's going on. Yes, Dale, I said that, you know. But we also have meditations every Saturday. And then, of course, on Sundays, we've had the privilege for the past few weeks of bouncing back and forth between GTC and Palm Desert. So this coming Sunday, it's going to be back at GTC's sanctuary with Dr. James. And then the following Sunday after that, oh, it's going to be a wonderful time because it's going to be the first Sunday of next month, but it's also going to be Dr. James as well as Dr. Joe Hooper, our beloved Mr. Hooper, our doctor. Anyway, so every single day there's something to watch. And if you've missed something, please, on YouTube, you can go to our channel, and every single show that we ever have done is archived there. So you can go back and watch anything and everything. And please subscribe to that channel and hit the bell, but also share it with your friends. If you've heard something or watched something that it was insightful or touched your heart, please, I ask you that you share that with friends and colleagues to get this word of brotherhood and spirituality and even the quantum physics, because we are at the beginning of that time where quantum theory and science and religion and faith are all merging back into one. They are not separate. They are the one and the same thing. So again, thank you all so very much for watching us. And I thank everyone here for all their insights. Gail, Dale, and Cheryl, thank you for the topic for today. So now I'm going to just pray us out. And I'd like for you to settle into that chair, or what you think is chair. But it's actually nothing less than the totality of spirit, that divine energy, that divine essence. It doesn't matter what you call it. It just is, and it knows what to do and how to do. And so at this time, I recognize that one power, that one life, that life of peace, love, harmony, that life of health, that expansive life. I recognize that power, and I see it, and I recognize it in myself. What spirit is, I am. And it is in that recognition, and it is from that reality, from that quantum thought, I declare my truth right here. That all life is perfect. All life is a learning opportunity. I see life with my eyes, and I process it through my heart. and I see the oneness of spirit. Everything around me is spirit, and it draws me closer to what I perceive is an outside material world. But here, right now, I recognize that it is not a duality of spirituality and materialism. It is the oneness, the singularity of that power manifesting itself into form. And so I honor that form right now. I honor it in others, and I honor it in myself. And in that recognition, I am filled with gratitude for knowing the truth of who I am and knowing the truth of what I am. Peace, love, harmony, compassion. That is what I am. And I recognize that in all. And in that recognition, I'm filled with joy. I'm filled with gratitude. And most definitely, I'm filled with thanks. So with that said, I now release my word as law, as truth, knowing the law manifests it perfectly. So I release it now. And together we say, and so it is. Thank you all so very much.